All right, let's check this out, bro. The cult in a boarding school. If this is creepy as fuck, I'm shutting this off. I just bit my cheek in the same spot I bit it twice. I bit my cheek 3 times today. Not even eating food. Just talking to the stream, I bit my cheek. Oh.
Thursday. Wayne Kernigan was stuck at home during an excruciatingly long winter. He was what his parents believed to be a problem child, experiencing nightmares, arguing with his 7 siblings, and getting in trouble at school. His parents' method of punishment wasn't the best. Having gone on record to state that his father beats him with hockey sticks, it was undeniable that their humble abode in suburban Connecticut was less of a place of refuge for him and more of a cell of torment.
What the fuck?
The phone rings in the kitchen, and his mom answers. It's from a school up north called Alain. The man on the phone says that Wayne should come right away and that they'll have a private jet waiting for him at Danbury Airport. His mom tells him not to worry and that it's more of an outdoor camp type thing that'll make him better. According to the flyer she read, it was proven with a 95% success rate, and their alumni were all leaving as better people than when they first arrived there. Counselors, psychiatrists, activities, friends. Alain had it all, he was told. And so Wayne packed up his stuff that night. Eager, sure. Nervous, yes. But absolutely awaiting the things to come. The plane touches down in Portland, Maine. 2 men greet him. After embarking for the school 30 minutes north in Poland, his escorts inquire on why he was sent there.
Poland?
Drugs?
Nope.
Court order?
No.
So why the hell are you going?
They joke. And then things get quiet. It was at this moment when Wayne began to question whether he was going to the place he thought he was. Something didn't seem right, but he was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. The two pull off a back, wooded road into a clearing. Looks like a camp, he thinks. However, when he exits the vehicle, he isn't greeted with the silent serenity of nature, but instead, the screaming. The 1970s were an interesting time. Across the United States, a rise in for-profit behavior modification facilities were in action. Now called the troubled teen or tough love industry, it seemed to be a money machine aimed at altering and stifling troublesome behavior in adolescents. The exact data is hard to gauge due to the widely varying nature of the names, motives, and specialties of each of these schools, but they were widespread and only became more so throughout the 80s. It's widely believed that the parental reception to the era's youth were the catalyst for facilities like this. Given that this was the decade following the rise of the hippie subculture, authority was and had been challenged for years, resulting in a sort of panic among older generations. Resultingly, in early 1970, a psychiatrist named Gerald Davidson, alongside investor David Goldberg and a man named Joseph Ritchie, would band together to create a school named Alain.
Chat, would you ever, like, send your kid away to school or, like, away to, like, some shit, like... Would you ever do that, bro? Even if they were, like, really bad? Like, I don't think I'd ever do that. Like, I don't think I could ever do that. But they just said all these facilities and shit in the 70s started to become popular. Think about kids that probably didn't need to go there. They were just like, you know, like class clowns or something, or like didn't care about school, but then had weird ass parents that thought like, oh no, like we need to like correct him or something. That's psychotic. Like that's like, I can't, like, you know, people just get unlucky and have like some shitty parents that do some bullshit like that, you know? That's, yeah, that could fuck you up. I feel like that's what this story is this guy was like not, he like is normal? I don't know.
Private co-ed behavior modification program geared from grade 8 to beyond high school. Ritchie built the facility as one that would correct bad behavior by teens without punishment, while painting himself as a genuine mentor that could help make that happen.
The cam overlay looks fire. Yo, Sneaky Bro Art, appreciate you. It took a long time to do all this shit.
Sitting on 33 acres of land off of Number 5 Road in Poland, Maine, Alain's main campus was highly secluded and a long shot from any outside civilization. With numerous facilities in place, the school was well equipped to handle a student body in the hundreds, and within the span of just 1 year, they'd eventually meet that metric. Numerous alumni, much like Wayne, have gone on record to state that their initial, outside impression of the school was that it was like a summer camp in the Maine woods. However, upon arrival, reality would paint a different picture. Allegedly, the final minutes of the trip there were unforgettable, with Alain being shrouded down a long dirt road in the middle of the wilderness, and made up of run-down trailers and buildings, giving it a frightening feeling of dread. Furthermore, some have stated that once they exit the vehicle expecting a lively campground, they're instead faced with a sight much stranger. Some students were spotted wearing degrading signs, some shackled in handcuffs, some being yelled at, and bizarrely, everyone would just pretend it's normal. At this point, it's been noted that some students attempt to flee. They weren't entirely sure what the Alain school was, but it was clear to them that it wasn't good. These escape efforts were always futile though, as Alain stationed guards around the campus to chase and subdue outliers that would attempt this. Considering how the school was marketed, touting itself as an altruistic institution genuinely concerned with helping troubled teenagers get better, it was clear from the outside that those claims were a reach. But just how far would they take that? What most students were unaware of was that behind their back, a deal was made on their behalf. With nothing but a simple signature and payment, parents could sign their child's life over to Alain, which advertised itself as a positive, reaffirming center of growth. According to an excerpt from an early 2000s archive of their website, we can observe the vernacular they used to appeal to each parent. Dear parents, we're very aware of how lonely and confused you must feel as you sit down to read this. If you're like the parents of most of our students, you're faced with an adolescent whose behavior is out of control, and you don't know why. A youngster who's been given everything and is throwing it all away is difficult to understand, but you can see that this process is progressive. The most saddening part is knowing that your offspring is ruining his or her future, Your own pain is difficult, but your pain for your child is unbearable. By coming to Alain, you have come to a truly different school. We can't offer you miracles, but we can offer you hope. We know that your journey to this point has been painful. We hope Alain can change its course. On top of this, school staff were known to hand out flyers to parents while persuading them that their child just might be troubled. It's been noted that Joseph Ritchie was somewhat of a salesman. He was charismatic and excelled at convincing parents of all the good that Alain could do for their kids. The good that, as we'll soon find, was all a lie. I'd like to let it be known that Wayne's Alain admission story was on the lighter side. For most of the other students, things were handled a bit more violently. Instead of a plane, school alumni have gone on record to state that they were transported by van. Reportedly, once your parents agreed to send you off to Alain and pay the $50,000 tuition fee, they designated time and date with Alain's so-called teen escort service.
What?
They wouldn't pick you up during the day, though. Instead, in the middle of the night when you're fast asleep, they would bust through your door and kidnap you. In years past, Alain's staff have stated that since the child has no say in attending, their capture hinges on the element of surprise. According to a blog named Suzuki's Thoughts, the abduction process involves 2 men breaking into the teen's bedroom, physically subduing them, tying them up with plastic handcuffs, throwing them into a van, and then driving them to Poland, Maine, where they'd be handed over to the Alain school. Such experiences often traumatize the teens who were abducted. For all they knew at first, they were being taken by criminals to be held ransom, tortured, or worse, killed. For the group...
What the fuck? Dude, Slim Crackhead. My guy, thank you, 10 gifted. Appreciate you. Yeah, what the fuck, dude? What the fuck is this shit?
Girls, it was even more terrifying. Some girls later recalled that they believed that they were going to be raped and murdered by their abductors. One certainly can't blame the kids for thinking this way. Such practices had all the hallmarks of a violent kidnapping. This practice became notorious around the United States, eventually earning its nickname, the Alain Snatch. If this were any indication, it was clear that morality wasn't the school's strong suit. But that ultimately begs the question, would it stop there? Or was their torment only just beginning? Day 1. Students would typically arrive to Alain during the early morning hours of the day. Due to the nature of their transport to campus, they were often known to resist their escorts. It's been noted that their capture was designed this way, utilizing their escape attempt against them as a tool to convey that no matter what, they're not getting out of there. And with this came the first steps of dehumanization, instilling the feeling that their basic rights have been robbed of them, in turn making them feel like less of a student and more like a prisoner. This sentiment was taken even further when they're physically taken inside the school. Often, the first stop would be the dormitory showers, which served as a tool in robbing each student of their sense of individuality. Reportedly, students are thrown into them with absolutely no privacy and are demanded to remove all of their clothing and valuable items. After complying, they're given what Alain calls no-image clothing, which, as the name implies, simply includes a bland, colorless shirt and pants, effectively forcing them into a state of conformity. Following this, each new student would be taken into a common area where they're assigned what Alain calls a big brother. This, in essence, was a tenured student designated to be a guide. On paper, they were told to help their students adjust to their new life on campus, somewhat like a peer, while educating them on how great and effective the program is. In reality, though, this relationship was far from friendly. It's been reported that big brothers would often try to deceive their newer counterparts, enticing them to run away or to break the rules. If the student had ever agreed or attempted to listen to this, their behavior would be reported to school staff, resulting in punishment. As we've seen in studies like the Stanford prison experiment, I'm sure you can see why this would be a bad idea. Oftentimes, big brother figures, much like staff, would take great pleasure in exerting their superiority over the newer students. It fulfilled them in a way that was almost cult-like.
Man, nobody use responsibility. Never clean a bathroom this morning, man. Yeah, you should remember next time. Because it's off the wall. I guess you clean out the showers too. And every one of them uses the showers. You're just being irresponsible.
If you want to act like a baby, you get screamed at. If you want to act as more like a mature adolescent, you get talked to.
Speaking of cults, the social hierarchy at Alain is structured in a way that heavily resembles one. At the school, students are immediately placed into two
This is scaring me, bro.
categories. Strengths, which were tenured, obedient students that were a few steps up the totem pole, and non-strengths, the newer ones who typically resisted treatment. Strengths were allowed to talk to fellow strengths and non-strengths. Non-strengths, on the other hand, were only permitted to communicate with strengths. If a non-strength were caught communicating with a non-strength, harsh punishment would soon greet them.
What?
The Alain School, as we've established, thrives on the feeling of hopelessness. Throughout students' tenures there, they were forbidden to contact anyone from the outside world unless they've earned the privilege through good behavior and compliance. Every single phone line from campus would run through a single switchboard located in this small trailer, and it was heavily guarded because of that. If a student were to gain the privilege of contacting their family, it's been reported that they're heavily monitored, only permitted to praise the school for all the good it's done to help them during their time there. If they ever were to be caught telling the truth or revealing the atrocities that occur behind the scenes, they were quickly disconnected, reprimanded, and robbed of any future potential to use the phone lines ever again. On top of the phone manipulation, every Alain resident was required to write what the school calls a guilt letter, which, as you might expect, is an explanation of how great the Alain School is for them, all the great activities they do there, and how well they're progressing through the program. These letters would be heavily scrutinized before being mailed out to their parents. Effectively, this tactic's goal was twofold: to allow Alain's facade to remain in place, and to entice their parents to spend more money on their treatment, in turn keeping them there even longer than they had ever planned to. In reality, students were helpless, being abused, and, in most cases, verbally tortured at the pleasure of the Alain School staff. It was clear to students that they weren't getting away from this anytime soon, and after realizing this, their minds would often pivot away from rebellion and towards compliance in hopes of powering through the program. This drove most of them to become somewhat brainwashed, ultimately stuck in a system that will do everything it possibly can to make their escape impossible.
Dude. I would get out of here, bro. Like, if I was really, like, in there, like, getting abused and, like, shit like that, dude. Once I get out, have you ever seen the scene from the last episode of Breaking Bad? I'm pulling up in the car, bro. Just know that. I'm pulling up in the car, bro.
As you might expect, The rules at the Alain school were immense. Exerting nearly totalitarian control over everything that happens, Joe Ritchie's set of rules, which he called guilt, was gargantuan and needlessly meticulous. As a student at Alain, you would be expected to refrain from doing the following: having any image, reading as a non-strength, not completing learning experiences, writing without permission, being sideways, looking at security zones, non-strength interacting, talking too loudly, talking too softly, looking at the opposite gender, being attracted to someone, any physical contact, looking out windows, unauthorized drawing, not listening to higher ranks, pretending to sleep at night, thinking of running away, being in the bathroom for too long, wearing dark clothing, being manipulative.
Thinking about running away? So you can't even think.
Being lazy while working, listening to music, talking too much, showering for more than 3 minutes, not talking enough, making facial reactions to orders, negative body language, pretending not to have guilt, oversleeping, undersleeping, smiling, and the list goes on and on.
What the fuck?
Clearly, these rules were not designed to be followed, causing harsh penalizations to become commonplace. To help enforce these, individuals known as expediters were designated by the school to stand on watch with clipboards. Primarily, they were known to catch those that broke 3 rules: being attracted to members of the opposite gender, looking at the opposite gender, and making prolonged eye contact with anyone else. Since expediters too were required to fill their clipboards with names and infractions at the risk of their own punishment, they frequently and unapologetically made assumptions and accusations that were a lie. As you'd expect, punishment varied pretty heavily at Alain, and not in a good way. One example involved requiring a group of students to live in a dumpster for over 2 weeks. The expediter watching them was tasked with ensuring compliance and preventing any attempt to escape. If their subordinates acted out, however, the expediter on duty would be forced to live in the dumpster with them while being monitored by yet another who was up to the task. Another major tactic at Alain was humiliation. They figured that by breaking down their social barrier, forcing students into extreme embarrassment, they could drive them to a point of total compliance. Those who tried to escape were often labeled as a split risk, and their punishment for doing so was confiscation of their shoelaces and the requirement to wear a bright yellow t-shirt and short pink shorts. The school figured that, without laces, their shoes were effectively useless, in turn preventing any ability to move any faster than a walk. A more extreme example of a split risk punishment is shown with this student.
But how do they know? Like, how do they... First of all, where's this footage coming from? How would anyone know all these details? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's this guy who said... I don't know. This is really strange. This is really... Dude, matter of fact, why don't more people... Wait, did they even, like, get out of this shit? Like, what the fuck? Why is this not talked about more? Wait, so some didn't even get out. So what happened to them? Oh, fuck.
Instead of a t-shirt and shorts, though, he was forced to wear a bright pink rabbit suit with cuffs around his legs. It's unclear if this is a repeat offender, but it raises the question as to how far Alain would actually go with this tactic.
Dude, that's so scary, bro.
Students that smiled at a place were punished by wearing dunce caps and reduced to work that the school calls shot down. These involved repetitious, dull tasks like mopping floors, scrubbing the insides of trash cans, and even cleaning toilets with just a single toothbrush for hours and hours on end. If you had to use the bathroom during shutdown, it's been noted that approval by sometimes 6 or more superiors was required before you were able. And even then, an escort had to watch you while you were in there. This, on top of a myriad of other degrading punishments like humiliating sign and diaper wearing, it's clear that Alain kept an iron grip on their daily operations. Their daily operations that took up most of the daily schedule, and those that were deceptively named by the Alain school themselves as their treatment.
Dude, I don't like this at night, dude. I keep staring at my security cameras. I'm hearing noises. It's the background music. Dude, I don't like this. I don't like this and I'm tired. I don't like this and I'm tired. Fuck. Can we watch something else? I'm not kidding.
But I will say, all of these punishments are relatively tame compared to what we're about to talk about. Let's just say, if you pissed off a staff member, they could start something called a general meeting on you. And trust me, you wouldn't want one. There seemed to be no standard for them. They would just happen at random, multiple times each day. If staff were annoyed or felt like targeting a specific student for some reason, they could call a general meeting at any time. Once these words were uttered, everyone in the building would be required to gather in front of the student in whichever room they were in. "Get your feelings off," the administrator screams. And following this, each student in the room would begin screaming at and berating the student.
What the fuck? Drunken Bear, thank you for the 5 gifted subs.
Firing off slurs and obscenities for nearly an hour long. No matter how much the student pled for everyone to stop, no matter how much they broke down, no matter how much they cried, general meetings would not end until the admin said so. And when it finally did, the victim would lie there, often crying and exhausted at the relentless abuse that they'd just endured. It's clear that general meetings aren't designed to reprimand. They're designed to completely break each and every student that's the subject of one. And with this, we can effectively put the points together that Alain was doing nothing more than running an operation that commanded total compliance. Any self-thought or sliver of independence that students thought they had was gone. They were merely reduced to weapons. Weapons that, at a moment's notice, could just as easily be used against them.
Yeah, I mean, you outnumber them, you gotta...
7 p.m. Contrary to its focus on academia and outside marketing, school time within Alain was secondhand to the students' treatment. Typically, the time frame for learning was 7 to 11 p.m., but sometimes could run longer.
What? Why?
As you might expect, there were no extracurriculars, no physical education, no projects, no legitimate exams, nothing. Instead, students were required to grade themselves on work that they were self-assigned with absolutely no direction. The structure of class typically involved a staff member supervising a room full of children. Each night of learning involved completing work out of freshman-level textbooks, which, unsurprisingly for a group of teenagers, would be immensely uneventful. Given that class time was after a long day full of verbal abuse, monotonous tasks, and a hierarchy system that does nothing but suffocate the lower classes, students dozing off and losing track of their work was expected. Curiously, school time too was regarded as a privilege at Alain. Joe Ritchie has gone on record to state that the class schedule itself was designed this way on purpose. Allegedly, he believes students were easier to control while sleep-deprived and utilized even this as a medium to work against them. By 11 p.m., if a student makes it through a night of work without issue, school hours then draw to a close. They're quickly released from class and escorted to their dorms, which were often in the form of uncomfortable, impersonal, military-style bunk beds.
What? Bro.
Sleep was known to be difficult, as designated students named night owls were assigned to stand guard with flashlights. In regular intervals, they'd shine them on the sleeping students to both ensure that they hadn't escaped and to secure the fact that they're actually asleep.
No way.
A requirement that, as we can recall, was also in the list of Alain's rules. And if one actually manages to calm their nerves, dozing off into their only time of tranquility, that would allow them to effectively place the cap on a day in the nightmare. That is Alain.
House, wake up.
And then you get to do it all over again.
No.
A notorious aspect of Alain, among everything else that happened there, was something called the ring. Considered the highest level of punishment, Alain's staff could make the call to start the ring at any time. The structure was set up similar to that of a general meeting, and was typically commenced when school staff believed that the punishment wasn't harsh enough for a specific student. In the ring, a student's designated as a bully and is outfitted with a face guard and gloves. Surrounding them are troves of others that are commanded to scream and yell obscenities at them. While this is taking place, specific students will be chosen to compete against the bully in numerous fistfights until school staff decided that they were sufficiently injured. No one was safe from the ring either. Some bore pre-existing injuries, some were much smaller than their opponent, and some were even pregnant. Even worse, things seemed to be treated like a game, with superiors commentating on the matches like they were on TV. In reality, though, this was the furthest thing from TV. This was handcrafted abuse. Alain was meticulous about orchestrating fights for the ring, too. It's been noted that certain students would regularly be punished for another's actions, effectively engineering anger between them. This was often noticed between big brothers and their subordinates, as they'd be punished for the actions of their newer counterparts. And once they were angry enough, a ring fight would commence, often injuring students so badly that they'd sustain permanent brain damage, PTSD, and even death.
It costs $17,400 to send the average youngster to Alain for 1 year. Even at that price, there are judges, social workers, and parents who consider it a bargain. Alain's defenders claim it has the most consistently effective program for salvaging young people who are too difficult for other facilities to handle. So many states want to use Alain that there's a waiting list. But on the other hand, one state agency in Massachusetts will no longer send their youngsters here because they object to the way the children are treated. One reason is the physical punishment. So you make no bones about it. There is corporal punishment here at Alain. Tell us about it. What are the stages it comes in? Who's it administered by?
Well, it's